I literally don't care if there's a heaven. I don't care about all the miracles. He didn't have to die on a cross for me to believe in him. It is just, this is who Jesus is. This is what he's done in my life. That's attractive to you. You should join me.
When we used heaven and say, give your life to Jesus and you get to go to heaven, you're actually diminishing Jesus. The gift God is offering us is himself. It's not give your life to Jesus and you get this. Give your life to Jesus and you get Jesus.
If you're listening to this, I love that you're listening to it. I don't care what you think. I care that you think. And if you're thinking about me, you're wasting your time. Go out there and think bigger. You're listening to the Mind Shift Podcast. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin Raphael McManus. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Other than we've had kind of a Wi-Fi crisis. We do a mastermind called The Arena, and it's global online. And when your Wi-Fi starts absolutely short-circuiting, it is a nightmare.
Yeah, so our primary business is called The Arena, which
Yes.
is built around three things.
Mm-hmm.
Communication, leadership, character. Sometimes we call it self-mastery.
Mm-hmm.
We meet every week. It's a 1-hour call, 30 minutes of conversation, 30 minutes of content, 30 minutes of conversation and Q&A. We do it once a week, and we've been doing it for a few years now. We have a few hundred people part of it. If you're looking to, grow in any of those fields, join The Arena now.
Mm-hmm. And we also add the caveat of big ideas. So if you love some of the more interesting, progressive, cutting edge ideas that we have, we'd love for you to join us in The Arena. But today was crazy because I guess all of LA is having Wi-Fi problems.
Yeah, there's something with the fiber with AT&T and Spectrum. I'm not sure what's going on.
I think it's just because our city is so terribly managed.
Okay, we're not getting into that on this episode.
So that's just a side note.
Aaron Bass, give me back my Wi-Fi.
I am blaming the mayor for this. And so we roll in from The Arena, which was high stress today, into our Mind Shift podcast, where we're going to try to chill and bring some calm and peace.
Yeah.
And then have some fun conversations about controversial things.
I guess. So we've been talking more about the scriptures, more about the Bible on the podcast the last few months. But, a couple of things that we've been doing well and some things we need to work on.
Yeah.
But, our amazing team, they've been cutting clips from our episodes and ruining our lives.
But you love blaming our team for
I
cutting
love blaming on it
clips.
because it's just funny. It's
Particularly
funny
Jacob.
to just have no ownership of it.
But really, it's not our editorial team, Jacob, who is our problem. It's what I say.
It's not just Jacob. It's Jacob and Austin. Yeah.
It's the same. It's the things I say.
Should we roll it back and play a couple of these clips and look in the comments and go from there?
If you want. I don't know how we do that.
Okay, we'll do that in a minute. But I want to open it up with, you had a conversation with a guy named Lecrae.
Yeah, which is an incredibly gifted, influential artist.
Yes.
And he
now podcaster as well.
He invited me on his podcast, and I said, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. But it's funny when people ask you something, when people say something, they assume you know about yourself. And so in the podcast, I don't know if I can quote him directly, but it'll come out so you guys can go watch his podcast and check it out.
Yeah.
But he said something to me about, you're probably one of the most, I think he says respected and feared people.
Okay.
Or he said, I don't know anyone who has been so misunderstood and what's that first? Maligned?
Okay.
Person in the Christian world. And so I didn't know that I was so...
Well, first off, how was the conversation? Did it go well?
It was amazing.
You've never met before?
No.
Or maybe,
we did meet.
Yeah, in Atlanta, probably.
Yeah, and because I discovered he's Tim Ross's cousin.
No.
Yes, he is.
They're
actually cousins.
Are they Latin cousins?
No, they're cousins.
They just grew up together, or are they real cousins?
I asked Lecrae when I saw him in Atlanta, are you really cousins with Tim Ross? And he said, yes, we really are cousins. And so I thought, that's kind of crazy.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
No, the conversation was fantastic. I left as a huge fan of Lecrae.
Awesome.
And really like him. Very intelligent, very thoughtful, well-spoken, great interviewer. I can see why his podcast is blowing up.
Yeah.
And
no, he's unique because he's been an established musician, artist, rapper.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly rap.
Mm-hmm.
But then now he really made not a switch, but an added addition to his repertoire of work, and by doing podcasting. And he's a great podcaster. Yeah. He's great at having conversations, great at asking questions. Mm-hmm. I've known him more from the podcast side than the music.
And I don't know a lot of his story. Near the end of the conversation, he alluded to having experienced some rejection himself. And he said, I no longer have a denomination, something like that, trying to create a sense of affinity with me. But it did strike me as odd when, or just funny, when he started assuming I knew how hated I am in the Christian world. And how badly people have spoken of me, and how I'm both, I guess, respected for my innovation, imagination, creativity, pioneering, but also, held with a sense of trepidation because of my views. And
yeah, basically said people really love you and people really fear you.
Yeah.
And not so much fear you as in they're afraid of you. They don't know what to do with the way that you speak, the ideas that you have, and how you put it out into the world.
So I said, Lecrae, you're saying that people basically, call me a heretic. And that was, I think, the agreed conclusion in that moment. And I think I try to stay away from a lot of that, to be honest with you. I live in
What do you mean by that?
A lot of the gossipy kind of, slanderous hate is east of the Mississippi. It's in the South. It's in the East. It seems like that part of Christianity, that epicenters in Atlanta and other parts of the South and the Northeast, that's where Christianity in the Midwest is highly engaged in a conversation with themselves. You come out to LA, I'm here in Hollywood, been here for, almost 40 years. I'm out of that world. I'm not really a part of that conversation. Well, I thought I wasn't, but I am to them, but I'm not to me. And so I didn't know. I've gotten a sense of it over the years, but when I was younger, I was a part of that world, and it was pretty challenging, really difficult. And of course, you grew up when I was more deeply involved, and it was more obvious that people were concerned about me or felt like I was a heretic or I was definitely an outsider. So I said, Lecrae, let's do a little orthodoxy test. And he goes, okay. He didn't force me to. He wasn't trying to prove anything.
Where in the conversation was this?
Early.
Okay.
Early in the podcast.
So did he go straight into this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right in.
I wasn't here. So
and I think he went right into it because he thought I knew.
But either way, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
It's a great topic.
No, it is.
He has you for an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
he's not pretending.
And so I said, so let's do a little orthodoxy test. Let's see if I qualify as a heretic. And I said, I believe in the absolute authority of the scriptures to begin with. I believe Adam and Eve were real people. I believe that there actually was a flood with Noah. I believe that Moses held up a staff and parted the Red Sea, that Elijah prayed fire down from heaven. I believe that God sent 10 plagues through Moses and set Israel free from Egypt. I believe that Mary was a virgin, gave birth to Jesus, who is God. I believe God walked among us, flesh and blood, was crucified, buried, and raised from the dead. So which part of this makes me a heretic, makes me unorthodox? Because I said, actually, if you look at me theologically, I'm pretty boring. I actually believe everything that, quote, Orthodox Christians, conservative Christians believe. And I told him, I said, the reason people think I'm a heretic is not because of my theological positions. It's actually because of my view of reality. I do not hold a view of reality that was established when we thought the world was flat, that the sun revolved around the earth, and that matter and energy were two essential different components. And we had a wrong view of reality, and Christianity was formed out of a lot of that. And we never progressed to what we actually even know now. And so I actually believe the Bible so much. And part of it, I told myself, I think my real conflict with Christianity is that I believe the Bible completely. And most of us believe our traditional beliefs about the Bible. I came to faith in Jesus as a pagan, like as an unbelieving, unchurched, whatever you want to call it, heathen, right?
Or just
a human,
like a normal person.
Yeah.
Like you're describing yourself the way that
they would
people
describe
you joined would describe you, not
yes.
the way that you would describe yourself before you met Jesus.
That's right. Because I think I came to faith as a human,
yeah,
and on a human journey. And but I didn't have a religious background really. I didn't have an orthodoxy to protect. So if you grow up Presbyterian, or you grow up Baptist, or you grew up Assembly of God, or you grew up Pentecostal, Charismatic, or Calvary Chapel, whatever it may be, and that's the school from which you're raised, you have a history of tradition to protect. Even when you no longer believe the things that they believe, you act like you believe them, even when you don't.
Can you break down a biblical belief or a traditional belief that people would use to say you're unbiblical or non-traditional?
Now, let me give you an extreme one just so we can work from extremes.
Okay.
In the Gospels, it says that you will handle snakes and not be killed, right? So there are primitive Baptists in the mountains of the Appalachians that are snake handlers. But we now know, hopefully, that is not to be applied literally. And so most Christians don't read the Bible and go, oh, I should grab a rattlesnake to prove that God exists, to prove that I believe in Jesus, because this is proof of my faith. We evolve in our understanding of the scriptures. And when I'm just going to use this in a point blank level, when you apply the Bible without a level of knowledge or education, you misapply it because you, quote, take the entire Bible literally. But the entire Bible is not meant to be interpreted literally. There are many things in the Bible that are various genres, and some of it's hyperbole. Like when Jesus says, if your eye sins against you, pluck it out. That's not to be taken literally. That's a metaphor. It's hyperbole. And so when you look at the entire Bible, you realize when people say, do you believe the Bible literally? I said, you shouldn't believe the Bible literally because it's not all literal. Do I believe in the veracity of the Bible, that it's all truthful? My answer is absolutely. And in fact, I was just in a conversation with a friend of mine, Paulo, who's asked me really important questions about the Bible. Do you believe this in the book of Genesis? Do you believe this? And he goes, I don't. He's telling me, I don't believe it this way. I don't believe this way. And I said, well, Paulo, I want you to know that I do believe it that way, but I understand that you do not, and we're still great friends. And he goes, no, I know you won't judge me and tell me I'm going to hell. I said, believing in Jesus is different than believing in the Bible. And that's one of the differences. See, I believe you can have a life-changing relationship with Jesus and have different understandings of the Bible. Believing in the Bible for some people is the same as believing in Jesus. They're almost inseparable, but they're not the same thing. You can give your life to Jesus and have never read a Bible.
Most of the people in our comments.
What's that?
Most of the people in our comments
are people who probably believe in Jesus but have not read the Bible. Yeah. And
or
that's
not read it much. Like they've had it read to them. They've
Yes.
read the YouVersion Daily Devotional, which is the best. I love YouVersion. It's not a knock. They've read what's their Lunchables.
Yeah.
And there's not a knock. Like I think we all have seasons where we just eat Lunchables. We eat what's packaged and prepared and refrigerated for us.
Yeah. And so there are other belief systems like the modern theologies around tongues, the modern theology around the second coming. Most of those views that are commonly held didn't even exist until the 1800s. And yet they're what people think are orthodoxy. So if, let's say, you don't believe in the rapture, all of a sudden you're a heretic. Or if you have a different view of the end times, you're a heretic. But you have to realize that there was a whole stream of Christianity that said that if you don't speak in tongues, you're not saved. And that kind of progressed, evolved, changed a little bit. No, if you don't speak in tongues, you have not been baptized in the Holy Spirit. No, if you don't speak in tongues. And it kind of adjusts and adapts over time. But there are still massive movements that says if you don't believe in tongues, you do not have the Holy Spirit. And those things become orthodoxy to people depending on what you're taught growing up.
Yeah.
It's just like Calvinism.
Yeah.
Calvinism is an orthodoxy. Yeah. And so there are people who believe in Calvinism or believe in a sense of dual election, or they believe in tulip, the 5 point, of Calvinism. And they believe that if you don't believe that, you are a heretic. And I've had friends I've known who are theologians and who are Reformed Calvinists, and they've told me to my face that if you don't believe this confession, you don't know Jesus. And so I think that what happens is that we actually confuse a theological system with a relationship with Jesus. And I actually think that you can have a life-changing encounter with God through Jesus. And your views about all that can change throughout your life because your views change, but it doesn't change the authenticity and genuineness of your relationship to God.
Do you think that, okay, I want to go into some of the clips that we've been talking about. I want to also talk about maybe this whole industry of Christians commenting on other Christians doing Christian things. Like, it's just silly to me. But I also, you see it in every day, in every facet,
they
every
seem to
industry.
love to comment on us.
They like commenting on you. And I'm sure they'll, my favorite comment is make podcast equipment more expensive. Like, it could be more expensive. I'll still afford it. It's fine. It's
I
all good.
love that.
Let's
hilarious.
make Instagram more
I love
expensive.
that. Make podcast equipment more expensive.
It's fine. It's okay.
See, and that's such an elitist perspective. So you only want wealthy people to have a voice.
Yeah. What they're saying is that,
I think we should make podcast equipment as inexpensive as possible. And if your voice should be heard,
it will be heard.
I don't want a lack of wealth to limit the power of your voice.
I love it. Okay, so a couple of things. I don't want to pull ourselves down into the mud, and because I think because whether we like it or not, Christianity as a whole, or American Christianity, or Western world Christianity, has become very much an industry, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I think you've wrestled with your entire life, career. But you wouldn't say necessarily career, maybe calling or what you've chosen that God called you to do. But, there to some degree, you speak at events, you speak at churches, whether you release a music album, people are still profiting off of religious moments or spiritual moments. Yeah. And it's never set well with you.
No. Lecrae used a phrase I'd never heard.
What?
The Christian Industrial Complex.
Christian Industrial Complex. Oh, interesting.
Which is what you're talking about.
The CIC.
And he said, how did you not get swallowed up by the Christian Industrial Complex?
Yeah.
And I'd really never heard that phrase before, but I understood immediately what he meant.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think, Lecrae, the difference is I never bought into it.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize I spent the first 10 years of my life as a follower of Jesus working with the urban poor.
Yeah.
I mean, working with drug cartels and gangbangers and the world of drugs and prostitution. Like there was nobody from the Christian Industrial Complex coming down there competing with me or trying to absorb me or co-opt me or anything like that. They pretty much left me alone down there.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that there was a industrial complex in Christianity that created wealth or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a whole Netflix doc on it.
Yeah,
they lobby in D.C., they fund churches, there's massive families, like the Green family that are wonderful but are really powerful. There's massive wealthy families that fund a lot of really influential people, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, and I think from the age of 20 to the age of 40, which is the first 20 years of my Christian faith, I'm going to guess my average income kept me just below welfare. And where we could have applied for welfare, Kim and I, and when we had you and then Mariah, and we qualified for welfare, we just never took it. And so
why does you say with a smile on your face?
Well, because I had many opportunities to become wealthy through my faith.
Okay. We disagree here, so let's keep going.
Yeah,
but let's go.
No,
we're gonna get there. We're gonna disagree
because I so despised the Christian Industrial Complex.
Okay,
but
you wrote books. But you
not till I was 40. I said from 20 to 40.
Okay.
And when I was 40, I felt I had established myself, built my credibility, didn't sell out. And I wrote an unstoppable force that was, for me, my magnum opus of what the church should be. And then continued in the business world, because what people didn't know is the church did not finance me from 20 to 40. I worked as a futurist. And
as a consultant?
As a consultant.
With real people.
With real companies, real organizations. I built my own wealth. outside of the church and
wouldn't call it
funded
wealth.
the church. What?
I wouldn't call it wealth.
Hey, if you can,
At that point, I wouldn't call it wealth.
I'm using wealth in a broad term.
You paid for your life.
I was able to put food on the table.
Yes, you provided for your family
and
by
paid the
consulting.
rent every month.
Yeah.
And you know, and made sure we could pay the checkout at Target and Walmart. Yeah. And but you know what? We felt wealthy.
It was more Walmart than Target.
Well, we upgraded eventually to Target.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I felt wealthy, so I never felt poor.
I look back and I go, even coming from, I'll say in certain contexts that I came from nothing, but we had everything.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean it from this perspective because we were embedded in a community that was truly in poverty.
Yeah.
Right. It was real poverty. We weren't in that same space, right? You had the ability to get a job. You had the ability to help. You just were making a sacrifice to help serve people who were really in the worst economic maybe bracket in the world, right?
Yeah, and I did have a job, it just didn't pay well.
Right. And so and I look at it and I go, you made sacrifices. Yeah. You were capable of you were educated, you were capable, you had the ability to. You also chose to live a life of purpose and bringing that to people.
Yes.
And so when I look back, I go, yeah, but it was nuanced. It wasn't that we were, poor because we had nothing. It was because we chose to. I mean, you chose to. Bring something to a space that didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and I go, do you think the 20 years of your life, because I think a lot of people tuned into your story when you jumped on the stage at Catalyst, when you wrote Unstoppable Force, and I still remember you were speaking at Catalyst with Malcolm Gladwell and Donald Miller and some of the largest, and it was like Rick, what's his name? Rick Warren.
But also at the same time around the age of 33, 34, where I spoke at the Global Leadership Summit with a few hours notice.
Were you that young when you spoke at GLS for the first time?
I did my first talk on the Barbarian Way.
That was the last minute phone call where they hey, can you just
called me like at 3 a.m. and asked me if I could speak first thing in the morning.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So back to the Christian industrial complex. Here, the goal of the purpose of this pod isn't to knock all of the people who have opinions. I think it's really just, understanding context. Like we post a clip. The clip is a representative of an entire episode.
Yeah.
He's not saying miracles don't happen. I think if anything, what you're saying is don't cheapen the miracle. You don't cheapen what God does. And I think there are some snake charmers. There's some snake charmers in those comment lists with some blue checks on there. And I think the reality is that I initially had written a long response being like, what you don't know is I've sat at dinners with people who speak at your church and know that they're more critical about the snake charmers inside of the industry and the church and the world than you maybe feel comfortable with. And they would call out people who've spoken at their church, not out of a critique of them, but just there's some people who are just scammers, and then you don't know till later, right? Yeah. There are guys who are just so wonderful in the moment and then they're awful later. I think the biggest miss, I think, in Christianity, or maybe in that CIC, the Christian industrial complex, is that people just aren't honest with what they're going through or working through.
Yeah.
And if there was this caveat, this asterisk of, hey, I'm speaking about God from a place of brokenness or a place of working through something, they feel they would lose their platform. And I think the reality is that the biggest miss is that would actually bring so much to people's lives.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here. I have this ability to communicate. I have this platform, and I am an absolute disaster in this field in my life. But we feel like that professor frequency, the 7 frequencies of communication, back to the assessment that we built, that is maybe the dark side, the shadow side of the professor, right? That this idea that we can't, if we were to be honest, if we were to lose our professor frequency and not be able to teach everybody everything because we're the expert, we would be diminishing our own credibility.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out to me is when you have a clip, it's focusing on one very small, narrow thing. And when I hear some of the critiques, sometimes I go, oh, that's a really fair critique if there wasn't a larger context. So for the clip, it's a fair critique, but not against the whole podcast.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times you should probably wait to critique until you listen to the podcast, or not critique. It's just lazy to critique on a 30-second or 15-second clip.
Yeah.
At the same time, just because something isn't always true doesn't mean it's not true.
What do you mean?
Yes, I believe in miracles.
Okay.
See, I do. I believe I've experienced miracles. I believe I've been in the middle of them. I believe that God has used me as a conduit for miracles.
You believe other people can be used for miracles?
Absolutely. And I think God is constantly doing things in human history that would be defined as the miraculous. And we should do a whole podcast on that. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of God's intervention in history. I also think there are a lot of charlatans out there who say to the person on row 3, you know,
pick a different row.
Whatever. I'm just trying to quote the clip. And when we don't call that out, we actually diminish the authenticity of the real. And I think that's a part of the challenge, is that there's so much unhealth in the way we express spiritual gifts that the unhealthy, toxic expression of it diminishes the really pure and beautiful and powerful and life-giving expressions of gifts. And when we try to fake miracles, it diminishes the reality of real miracles.
Can we talk about what having an authentic expression of faith means and looks like?
I think it's different for different people. I mean, frankly, it's well, one of the things I think is interesting is Latin America went from being Catholic to being Pentecostal. But there was a transitional period. It went from being Catholic to being Baptist to being Pentecostal. And a huge part of it is this. When you're Catholic, you have a lot of wrong beliefs. Like, especially if you believe in, you praying to the saints and praying to Mary and all these different intermediators that you can't get to God, and that the church saves you, rather than Jesus directly. And then Baptists come and teach you the Bible, and they show you how Jesus is the only way. But as a Catholic, you believe in miracles. And then as a Baptist, you don't. And then the Pentecostals come and go, oh no, yes, it's the Bible and it's Jesus, but there are miracles. That's the reason Latin America became so Pentecostal, was because I was born in that sense a Roman Catholic. So I was primed for miracles. And then Baptists tell you Jesus is the only way, and you go, yes, but then they say, oh, but there are no miracles. You go, no, that can't be true, because I had a miracle before I even knew Jesus. And so Latin America was really primed for Pentecostalism. And one other thing, there are people who would say, there's a demon in my house. There's an evil spirit that's taken over my uncle or my grandfather. And then Baptists would come in and go, let's do a Bible study, but there are no such things as these kind of demons. And Pentecostals would come and say, oh, we'll come and cast it out. And they would literally have these spiritual wars and exorcise spirits, because when you have nations that have macumba and santeria and, they have, primal worship of spirits and demons, and that's been their history. And then the power of Pentecostalism was, oh, don't worry, the Holy Spirit is more powerful than all the spirits you have. And so they were more primed and ready for that kind of war. And so the reality is that different expressions of the world have uniquely different expressions of their faith. And they're authentic and genuine to where they are at. Mm. And the faith of Jesus in London is very different than the faith in Jesus in Rio de Janeiro, and very different than the faith in Jesus in Beijing. And sometimes I think it's hard for us to understand. Oh my goodness, the faith in Jesus in Nairobi is very different than in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so easy to criticize, mm-hmm. right? Like, we can criticize all of us. You can criticize Girls Gone Bible girls. You can criticize, the random person on TikTok or Instagram. You can criticize the president. You can mm-hmm. criticize us. You can criticize the guy no one's ever heard about. Mm-hmm. But I think that is where our culture suffers. We kind of have this secondary and tertiary industry that is just reviewing all of the people who have produced some type of expression or product or book or thought or mm-hmm. manifesto or theory, or theological viewpoint. And it's always about, this person's a heretic, or this person's this, or this person's this. And I just look at it and I just go, I don't know. I don't really, like, if you're listening to this, like, I love that you're listening to it. I don't care what you think. I care that you think.
I love that.
Right? I don't care what you think about me. I care that you think about something. And if you're thinking about me, you're wasting your time. Like, go out there and think bigger.
Yeah.
Think deeper. And stop listening to people just review everybody. Like, go and hunt and kill and prepare a meal for yourself. But keep listening to the Mind Shift podcast.
But that was interesting. I heard that one of the critiques was that they had an insider at Mosaic.
Who? Oh.
This is what I heard. They had an insider at Mosaic that said that half the people at Mosaic were not even Christians. Isn't that pretty close to it? And I said that insider would be me.
You've said it.
I've said it many times.
Yeah.
That there have been seasons where half the congregation didn't know Jesus because Mosaic is so good at having a conversation with an unbelieving world. But it's because we had half the people in the room not being Christians that we had that spectacular year where we baptized over 1,000 adults who came to Mosaic not believing in God, not believing in Jesus, not believing anything that we believed in, and had a life-changing encounter with Jesus and were baptized at Mosaic. And so I actually don't think that's a critique. I think the critique is there are too many churches that only have Christians. The churches that only have Christians are the unhealthy ones to me. It's the churches that have people who believe deeply in Jesus and their friends who don't because they're opening up their lives to them. Yeah. Those are the healthiest, most dynamic churches in the world. This section is going to be behind the paywall.
Okay.
And then we'll come back.
So now we're back.
All right.
My thing was you just got to be more nuanced, everyone. When we're in the comments, you got to be more nuanced to know. Like, this is a clip. Like, if you're going to comment or hate on it, awesome. It's just a clip. If you want to go deeper, open the pod. But I think that is like a true mirrored reflection of how we engage with our spirituality on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
We're more likely to respond to the clip than to listen to the pod, to listen to the episode. We're more likely to go, well, God told me to do it, versus go to the people who we really trust and go, hey, I've been praying about this with God. Has he spoken to you about this in my life? Has he spoken to me about this in my life? Could you help me navigate what God's saying and putting on my heart or my mind? Like, we use these clips, whether it's spiritual clips in prayer or, I hear a voice in my head or, and I'm not knocking it because I do believe God speaks to us. I do believe God puts things on our hearts. So, like, it isn't that. It's just looking at it from a different perspective going, is it enough to listen to the clip or do we need to actually listen to the episode?
The irony is that my experiences that I have laid hands on people and they have been completely healed of significant injuries or sicknesses. I just don't talk about that very much. The irony is that I've prayed and I've seen undeniable miracles that sometimes I can't even believe I experienced them. Yeah. And so I'm not saying by that clip that I don't believe in these things. In fact, what I'm saying by that clip is I so believe in these things that it angers me when the authentic is diminished by the inauthentic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's really sad, some of the stuff. But mostly, more than anything, I look at the clips in the comments and I was more upset when they were political attacks. I don't really care when it's spiritual attacks because I go like, man, there's a clip where you talk about not caring if there's a heaven. And I'm going to play it real quick because I want to remember it.
And that's a good one.
Honestly, I didn't care about heaven. It seems like Christians were really focused on heaven.
Yeah, why aren't you?
Because I want to bring heaven to earth, not leave earth to get to heaven. So I have a very different intention in my life. When I turned to Jesus, it wasn't Jesus take me to heaven when I die. When I turned to Jesus, it's Jesus change my inner world so that I can be a different human being. From the beginning, I told myself, I'm going to be a social experiment. I'm going to see if a human being can actually have integrity. I'm going to see if a person can actually be good. I'm going to see if a person can actually be kind. Not because I care about my reputation. I just want to be the most noble version of me. And when you change why you do you, it changes everything. It gives you inner peace.
But listen to the context. Okay. I didn't care about heaven. It didn't say I don't care about heaven. It says when I came to faith, I didn't care about heaven, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
I can't change the reality of the history of my conversion.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was a person who did not believe in God or did not believe in Jesus, I did not care about heaven.
I have a hot take. I believe in Jesus. I love God. I literally don't care if there's a heaven. I don't care if there was a virgin. I don't care if he died on the cross. Jesus, to me, he didn't have to die on a cross for me to believe in him. The way he lived his life was enough for me to understand that he's worth following. I don't care about his mama's business. I don't care about all the miracles. I don't care. And I definitely don't care about heaven, because hell for me is heaven with all the people in the comments. That's my hell. Can we get a heaven for one? I'm so sorry. Is there a table in heaven for one? But I mean that sarcastically. So Jacob, when you get this clip, you're gonna mess up my life. But I really don't care. And it's not that I don't care that it's true. It's just not the deciding factor.
Yeah, you don't care functionally. You don't wake up every day going,
because I do feel like
heaven.
I couldn't tell you the last time I thought about heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not how I share my faith.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't, this is who you are. This is the thing you can't get into. So you have to change who you are to get into it. It is just, this is who Jesus is. This is what he's done in my life. If that's attractive to you, you should join me.
Yeah.
That's
it. And so I think the clip is...
But no, respond to it.
No,
Do you agree or disagree with what I just said?
Well, I can't agree or disagree, because you just shared your experience.
So heaven, table in heaven for one.
Your experience
could be for two.
Heaven does not motivate you.
It doesn't at all. I don't understand why heaven is such a big motivator for Christians.
And I got to say, heaven does not motivate me, so maybe I passed on that virus.
No, I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about it, whether you valued it or not.
I talk about the kingdom of God, and I talk about...
you do talk about heaven, but I don't know that I've ever heard you say the reason why I gave my life to Jesus was because I wanted to go to heaven.
I didn't. And that was the question that I was asked, because it was the coined question. If you died tonight, do you know for certain you're going to heaven? That was the question I was asked multiple times before I became a person of faith, because they thought that heaven was the motivating factor.
Yeah.
And it was not a motivating factor for me. I'm like...
All I can tell you is that if I die tonight, I'm not going to be here listening to you. I'm out. I'm getting that death row meal. I'm not doing it.
But it didn't mean that I don't believe in heaven. I actually do. I just don't believe in heaven the way that most people do. And ironically, I think I believe in heaven in a more biblical way, because I don't
more biblical than what?
Than tradition, because heaven tends to be this place with clouds and angels playing harps, and we're just sort of chilling, hanging out with God, right?
Yeah,
doing nothing.
Yeah, if heaven is like the lobby at the Four Seasons, I'm out. I'm out. I'm not there.
And I'm like, there's just nothing attractive about that to me.
No.
And so I actually, when I think of heaven, I think of adventure, exploration, pioneering, creating, and a reality beyond my wildest imagination. And that excites me because it's like, I get excited when I go on a trip to somewhere I've never been to. I've been excited for several years about the trip to Japan that I have not taken. I think about my trip to Japan almost every single week. I want to go so badly. And I think of heaven like that, the great adventure, the unknown mystery, the exploration of, the eternal. That for me is exciting. And because I see heaven as the great adventure after this life. I don't see it as the resting place.
An all-paid vacation.
Yeah, that's not it at all for me.
All inclusive.
But I'm true in that clip, and I think we need to pay attention to it, because
how are you true in that clip?
I didn't care about heaven. It wasn't a motivator for me. I wasn't living in fear of heaven or hell. I think that working from that framework misunderstands the human essence. People are desperately searching for meaning, for significance, for love, for acceptance, for purpose and tension. And that is the journey of heaven and hell to most people, is the pain and tragedy and confusion and angst of this life. And so if everyone around me was going, I'm so afraid I'm not going to heaven. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, I had dinner with some friends and Kim. And at dinner, my 80-something-year-old friend who's Jewish said...
the labels you label are hilarious to me.
Well, it's because she's an Orthodox Jew, so it's an important part of the conversation.
And also, that's like most of my good friends in LA. When you just live in LA, that's the industry, it's the world, it's the community here.
But here we are having dinner, and she says, I'd like to talk about what happens after we die. And we spent the next half an hour to 45 minutes in a conversation what happens after we die. Because that's what mattered to her at this point. She was really grappling with life after death.
Where do we go from here? And
that is a moment where heaven meant so much to me.
Yeah.
To be able to share with her the promise of heaven and the opportunity of life after death. And
I think she's already met Jesus.
Yeah, I think
she's going to step into that relationship at some point very soon.
And, and her husband, who she loved, died over 20 years ago, and I'm sure she's grappling with that.
Where is he now? Where will I go?
And, and so I think it's more important to say, to understand what people are actually grappling with. And I don't want to diminish the importance of heaven. I'm saying heaven wasn't a driving factor for my coming to Jesus. And what's even more interesting to me is my brother Alex, your uncle, who came to faith a month before me. A year after we came to Jesus, he calls me up and he says, "Erwin, did you know there was a heaven after we die?"
I wish I could have been alive in the era where you and Alex were just figuring everything out.
He was about to go to seminary, right? He was in the seminary.
No, Alex is, you and now, it's like genius level intelligence.
My brother's definitely a genius, right?
You are too.
But a year later, he just figured out that there was a heaven. And he goes, "Did you know there was a heaven after we die?" And I said, "Yeah, Alex, I figured that out right away."
Like day two, day one.
That was like a day one, day two kind of like discovery for me. And he goes, "This is so amazing." He goes, "I gave my life to Jesus just so he would change me for this life." This is like a huge value added.
Okay. I love this. But I love that thought and the way that you wrap up both of those two stories, right? Your friend that you were at dinner with and Alex. That makes me care about heaven. I guess maybe the thing we have to clarify is the way that we look at things is different, I think.
Yeah.
And heaven isn't my priority, right? If you asked me what my priority with faith is to help people know Jesus, right? The Jesus I know, not the Jesus that you guys buy books about, the Jesus I've experienced in my real life. I love that you said, I'm not trying to diminish heaven. You're not trying to diminish miracles either. We're not diminishing heaven. We're not diminishing miracles. What we're saying is that we're looking in the context of the application, right? What's wrapped up in it. You're saying, start asking questions about the guy who picks the seemingly random person in the third row and heals them. And then I loved the comments, like, so what you're, the CEO of Promise Keepers, it seems like he's a Marine vet or an Army vet. And, I don't know if Promise Keepers is even a thing anymore, but used to speak there when I was a kid. And it was, we met Joe White and all these amazing people. Was it Reggie Dabbs on that tour too? Like some of these amazing human beings. And this guy's young now and he's an ex-vet and he seems smart, but he just posts like, so what you're going to tell me is that the girl in the wheelchair that got healed from epilepsy, but she's not, I bet she's pretty excited that she had a miracle performed. I'm like, no, that if you can't, because I don't want to diminish his intelligence, I'm just diminishing the nuance. If you can't connect the dots, that this man's going, no, what you have to do is just be weary or understand or just question. Then and connect the dots. Like miracles do happen. We value miracles. There's no diminishing of miracles. It's diminishing the guy who uses that as the performance tool. The performer, the entertainer. Because one of my favorite stories ever, and favorite moments in my life, was sitting with two of my friends, Noah and Jonathan, in Sweden. I've talked about it on this podcast before. And one of their dads was a Pentecostal preacher growing up, very charismatic, and he was one of those guys who could go, you in the fourth row. He wasn't speaking in big spaces. He's traveling around, Scandinavia, speaking at tiny churches, kids in the car, and he he was like, I couldn't explain it. My dad was that guy. He was that guy who could just pick the guy in the fourth row and just God could speak to him and he just knew things about his life. He's like, I watched it happen night after night after night. But he goes, I don't believe in miracles because of something tragic that happened in his life. He had a loss, right? And it's his story to tell, not necessarily mine. And then our other friend, and he's the friend I would think believes in miracles because the way he lives his life, right? He's a good man, good father, good human, creative, brilliant worship leader, all the things. And my other friend, who's rough around the edges, but also really kind and beautiful family, all the things. And, you know, I said in the pod back in the day, I said a dark artist. He's just an artist that does all the things, and he's wildly talented, gifted, and really, really successful. And he just starts to get emotional. And just, I believe in miracles, and this is why. Because one day I got a random call from a friend who decided to call me and say, hey, I'm calling you because I'm about to kill myself. I have a gun on the table. When I hang up, I'm going to kill myself, but I decided to call you. And the most Swedish way, the way he tells the story is amazing. It's so much better than me. He just, in the most Swedish way, he goes, oh, okay. You okay? He's just responding so Swedish. Me, I'd be like, I'm starting to FaceTime you. I'm calling the police. I'm calling my mom. I'm driving in the car. He just handled it so calmly. Okay, can I pray for you? Yeah. And he prays for him and he hangs up the phone and he goes, I just thought maybe I'm never going to see my friend again. And then he shows me the photo of when he met up with that guy because he called him again and said, hey, you want to hang out? And he took a photo of him in the forest and he was like, this is my miracle. Because I don't know if it was my prayer or if God just spoke to him or it's something, but something interceded in his life and changed that person's moment, right? And I think changed the life forever. And he was just emotional. And it was just this beautiful moment on miracle and this beautiful moment on sharing faith. And I was like, see, these are the things that are just important, right? It's like these little battles, these little wars. But we spend so much of our time on the internet fighting over something that just is really unimportant when there's real like pain and brokenness going on in the world, you know?
That's so good. It's so true. You know, I think really, ironically, what we're both saying is that we're not trying to diminish heaven. We're not trying to diminish miracles, but we are trying to elevate Jesus and people's need for him.
Yeah.
Because for so long, heaven was like the carrot and Jesus was the stick, or miracles, you know, were like the goal and Jesus was the means to the ends. And, you know, all of these things are not the dessert and Jesus is not the vegetables. Jesus is the gift. And, you know, when we used heaven and say, give your life to Jesus and you get to go to heaven, you're actually diminishing Jesus. See, what the gift God is offering us is himself. It's not give your life to Jesus and you get this. Give your life to Jesus and you get Jesus. And that's the power of the gospel. That to me is what I want us to keep at the center. It's not all this other stuff. Like, you know, there are miracles and there is a heaven and there are all these other value addeds. But if you're coming to God for all those other things, you will always diminish God in terms of who he should be in your life. And like Jesus, I know we say Jesus is enough, but I don't know if we really live that. You know,
break that down.
Yeah, it's like we say Jesus is enough, but then we want Jesus plus all these other things. Or, you know, even if
we want Jesus and what?
Miracles. We want Jesus and heaven. We want Jesus. What if there is no heaven?
Yeah.
Like, could my brother's faith be purer than ours when he accepted Jesus with no knowledge of heaven? Like, how more pure can a faith become than that?
But we live in an era that would say because he didn't know there was a heaven, so he didn't believe in heaven, so he wasn't really saved.
He wasn't really saved, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, if all you had was Jesus, but you didn't believe in miracles, wouldn't that be almost like a more profound faith? Because you're like, the one miracle I get is Jesus. You don't get any other miracles in this life.
Yeah.
You know, or even if it's like wealth, like a lot of people go, give your life to Jesus and, you know, he's going to give you the miracle, you know, the magic path to great wealth. What about if there is no great wealth? What about if he doesn't promise great success? What about if he doesn't promise any fame? And what about if nothing else is guaranteed except for him? Is that enough? And I actually think that the reason it's so hard to understand our belief systems, I'm saying us together, is that we think all these other things are really amazing. And there are things you work for, you pursue. It's okay to have ambition and drive and dreams and goals. But that's our part. That's our work. Because Jesus is enough. He is the miracle. And I think that's been true to my life. I've seen miracles, but I don't need them. And, and I believe in heaven, but I don't actually need it. I wake up in the morning with a deep sense of, I can't believe that I have a relationship with God through Jesus, and he's with me. And that for me is enough.
I love what you're talking about. And I love this. I love talking about these things. And I think, just being able to have, I block a lot of commentators. Like, it's like, no offense to these other guys. It's not like I don't like these. I just, I think someone even brought it up in a clip, like, oh, they've blocked me forever. And I'm like, no, I block anyone who breaks a clip down and like yaps about it, because I want our community to be our community. Mm-hmm. I'm not having our communities. I didn't pay you to be ESPN about what we're doing, or TMZ. Like, I just don't care. I care about what we're producing, and I want to kind of put blinders on, and this is not perfection. This is just human, and I think that's a different tone. Mm-hmm. And so I want to allow it to be different and have its own space. And I don't really care. I don't go to Texas. I don't go to Georgia. I don't go to Nashville. I don't care if these people like me or dislike me. Where they are, I'm not. I'm here, and I'm on TikTok and Instagram. So you want to run the block? I'll send you an address. That's fine. But you didn't grow up where we grew up, so we're just gonna keep doing our thing.
That's awesome. This has been fun.
So fun. I love it.
Well, I'd love to get some comments on topics in the Bible you'd love for us to talk about.
Yes,
that'd be fun. And I would love for you guys to send me and Aaron some suggestions of either specific passages
or books
or topics.
Yeah, or theories.
Yeah, or theories.
Yeah, we love it.
Unanswered questions.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this and you don't believe in Jesus, we want your question more than anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get front of the line.
Those
are the questions that are interesting. Yeah, I love it when someone in the comments is like, you guys are adults and you believe in fairy tales.
I know.
I love that. I love those comments. I'm like, oh.
How sad for you that you do not believe in fairy tales.
But also, like, how mad are you at your algorithm that you're getting us? But I love it. So if you're seeing this, it's not too late. You can still subscribe. Okay, this is a great episode, or a random episode, but I really appreciate you having the conversation. Thank you for listening to the Mindshift podcast. Rate and review this pod. Subscribe to it on YouTube. Click the link in the bio on Instagram. You can also join Mindshift podcast community. $25 a month. Keeps the lights on. Keeps Jacob ruining our lives. And, we just have a little bit of fun. We do a private episode. You have some old episodes. You have the section of this episode that'll be behind a paywall on school and our community. And honestly, you just get to connect with people around the world that are listening to the Mindshift podcast community. If you're looking for coaching, business, communication, leadership, join the arena. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
All right. Love you.
Love you too.